All right, welcome to another episode of the Cassels Cast. My name's Eamon Cassels. Joining me today is going to be Josh Medi of the Once Upon a Dribble podcast. We got a ton to talk about. We're going to be unveiling our picks for the NBA awards. So, yeah, without any further ado, let's just get into the episode. Joining the show now is Josh from the Once Upon a Dribble podcast. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, man. Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Should be a ton of fun. So today we're going to be going all over our awards picks. We're going to be talking about all the major awards in depthly, as well as the all NBA teams, the all defensive teams, and the all rookie teams. I think we can start over with most improved, and we're going to count down 3, 2, 1, and then wrap up with some of the more major awards. But yeah, who was third place for you on most improved?
Third place on most improved. This award's always tricky because I think people go back and forth on like what's the criteria for most improved? How are they defining this? Is this a guy taking like a superstar leap? Is this a guy who just got like more minutes opportunity or whatever? So it's kind of tough. You'll see in a second. I actually had two guys from the same team in the top three, but third I had Jalen Johnson. Um, I mean, he's already starting to flash some stuff last year, but I think especially without Trey this year, I think he's clearly like the engine for what has kind of become like a pretty good Hawks team. Like they came into the year like with some decently high expectations, but like centered around Porzingis and Trey, and that's completely flipped on its head. And now they're playing like some of the best ball of the second half of the season. And I think it's largely because of Jalen Johnson. Um, he is kind of a, if fans are just looking at box scores, he's kind of a PRA box score stuffer, but he impacts the game in a lot of ways. I'd say compared to last year, the defense might have slipped a little bit, but he's also playing a drastically different role than the year before. He's like I was looking at some stats. He's basically in like the 100th percentile in points created per game. Like he's just awesome. So I don't know if you have any of those other guys, but I was also considering like Ryan Rollins and Denny Avdia for third, and they might be in your top three as well, which I think those are also defensible choices. But for third, I had Jalen Johnson.
Yeah, I think Jalen Johnson is a great pick. Ultimately, he didn't make my list, and sort of similar to Denny, I
Yeah,
feel like we've seen a little bit more flashes from
that's
those two
fair.
players in years past. But I mean, the leap he's taken is significant. I think he went from maybe somewhere in like the 30s or 40s range to a legit top 15, 20 guy in the league. And
Absolutely.
like you said, he's been the engine of the Hawks' success. Both as a scorer and playmaker, he really does a little bit of everything. I've always been a big fan of his game, but for him to reach this level is super impressive. And I mean, I'd like the NBA to expand the most improved award a little bit more. Give us a most improved team or two or three
That'd be
teams
sweet.
because there's especially this year. I mean, more so than years past. It's been hard to come up with a list because there's so many great guys. I have three guys obviously, but there's 4 or 5 guys that I feel bad leaving off. But
Right.
yeah, ultimately I did have Ryan Rollins as my third place guy, and like you said earlier, it is really tough to evaluate how do you compare a guy that makes a true star leap when they were already pretty good, like a Jalen Johnson or Denny Avdia, compared to a guy like Ryan Rollins who just sort of bursts onto the scene unexpectedly and plays a really big role, and it's always a tough balance. So I feel like I just tried to represent a few different types of players with all three of my selections here, but ultimately Ryan Rollins has had such a phenomenal season. He contributes to the game in every way, and for him to be on a two-way contract last year, and obviously the Buck season hasn't gone as planned at all, but for him to be really one of the best, if not considering that Giannis has been out for the vast majority of this season,
Right.
pretty much their best player throughout the season and the leader of their offense, it's super impressive, and I wanted to give him a nod there.
Yeah, he's. I think he's the other guy that I had a really tough time. Is honestly between Jalen and uh, Ryan Rollins. And I posted about this a few weeks ago. I don't know if the numbers are still holding up, and I know the volume is relatively lower, but I think like on a certain amount of either points scored or shot attempts in the clutch, um, at least as of a few weeks ago, he was leading the league in true shooting percentage in the clutch. It was like something absurd, like in like the high 60s, almost. At one point, it was like 70% or something. So again, like obviously the Bucks suck this year, but I think he's a major silver lining for a Milwaukee fan. So I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up finishing in the top three. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he has been the main silver lining for an otherwise really difficult season for
yeah,
Bucks fans. But
definitely.
yeah, who did you have as your number two choice?
For two, I had Jalen Duren. Um, Yeah, breakout season completely changed Detroit's trajectory. Obviously, Cade took a little bit of a leap as well, but I think what Duran did this year is just like I think more to the point of like before maybe just kind of like a solid rotation guy, a solid starter to someone who clear all star, potential all NBA guy. 22 years old. He's become more reliable in pretty much every facet of his game. And I think what the cool thing is that Detroit has hardly skipped a beat with Cade out. Glad that he's back. I know obviously Cade wasn't at like a ton of time. Part of that is like small sample. Whenever a guy's out for a little bit of time, there's going to be some shooting luck, some opponents face stuff, some lineup context. But when Cade plays, he's great, and when Cade sits, Jalen's still great. Um, Look at some per 75 numbers with Cade. He's 23 and 14, 66% true shooting, plus 9.1 plus minus over 1,200 minutes, so really big sample. Played 270 minutes without Cade, 27 and 16 per 75, 66%. So the efficiency is the exact same and still a positive plus 4.4. So obviously they're better with Cade. But I think the fact that the production, he's able to ramp that up without him there. That's just elite number two production. And I think his growth deserves to be recognized for just all the ways that it's impacted a team that is, going to win possibly 60 games. So, glad he got some All-Star love this year. I hope he gets some All-NBA love. That's a bit of a spoiler for my picks later, but yeah, I think I got Jalen Duren second here.
Yeah, I also had Duran here, and
Nice.
I think you really nailed it with the point about succeeding without Cade, whether it's when he's off the floor or in the stretches, especially this recent stretch without him entirely. I think that just speaks to his all-around improvement. And yeah,
Mhm.
for me, I don't think there's a player that I've changed my opinion on more than Duran this season, and that's not a
For sure.
disrespect. I didn't think he was a bad player by any means, but I was like, okay, he's a nice, quality, young, rotational big man who's going to be nothing more than just a solid two-way player throughout most of his career. And I do think I underrated the fact that he was still 21 or 22 years old entering the season and that he could get a lot better. And yeah, he's just, like you said, improved in every area. The scoring has gotten a lot better. The short roll playmaking has gotten better. The
Yep.
defense has gotten a lot better. I feel like, I mean, for as much as we want to talk about maybe him going from like a 11 point a game guy to a 19 point a game guy, improving on defense while doing that is super
It's
impressive to
crazy.
me, and that's something I really value. Because my thing with Duran, heading into the year was mostly this guy's really good. He can catch lobs. He's a very solid role player. But I would like to see a little bit more defense from that archetype, and I feel like we have seen a significant
Enough, yeah.
improvement. And yeah, I mean the Pistons have a great defense around him, especially like Asar Thompson, Ron Holland, Cade Cunningham, Isaiah Stewart. But he is still the anchor of that defense in many ways, and he's done a terrific job. And I definitely agree. I do have him on an All NBA team as well. I know that's a bit of a spoiler, but I think that just speaks to his improvement. As a guy, I probably wouldn't have even had him as a top 100 player
Right.
heading into the year, or maybe like fringe top 100, whatever. And then going from that to legit top 25 level guy, top 15 in this season alone, it just speaks volumes to how much he's improved. And in many other years, I do think he would have won this award, but I think we both agree that Nikhil Alexander Walker is number one for us, and he's just had a totally
Yeah.
absurd season. So I assume you have Nah
Yeah,
here.
I got Nah here as well. I just think Minnesota has to be kicking themselves. So it's been a really rough last year for Minnesota in a lot of different ways. But yeah, I mean yeah, Nah, I think it's the pretty clear choice. Yeah, same on ball percentage as last year, which is around 19%. But despite that, his scoring is like more than double. His true shooting percentage is a career high. He's still like one of the best spacers in the league. He's been really good in transition. Like that's one of the play types that's really popped this year for him. The Hawks are a pretty fast team, and he's just finishing in transition in a lot of different ways. Finishing at the rim better. Finally has a positive transition relative true shooting percentage. And I think the biggest thing is that he's still clearly a plus defender as well. To your point about Duran, it's like okay, cool. Like you're expanding your game in a lot of different ways. Are you still like fitting somewhat into the archetype of what you were earlier in your like are you adding stuff to your game without other things kind of falling off the table, which makes sense. A lot of guys will step into new roles, like I said with Jalen Johnson earlier. He's the engine for a Hawks team. The defense has slipped a little bit, and that's understandable. But I think it's cool that Nas has seen like this big scoring explosion really efficiently, and I think he's still pretty clearly a very solid defender for the Hawks and one of their better perimeter guys. So yeah, I didn't think too hard about having Nah first. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's probably going to win the award, and yeah, I think he has a perfect case. Really, you look at a guy who is a solid rotational player, I don't think anybody looked at that contract in Atlanta and said it was a bad deal by any
Yeah,
means,
for
but
sure.
now it legitimately looks like one of the best value contracts in the league.
Yeah.
And he looks like a guy that could be, who knows what this final form of this Hawks team will be, but he looks like a guy who could be that second option or third option on a really high level team. And that's a testament to his improvements. And yeah, everything he's doing as a self creator is totally absurd. He's handling the ball a lot, especially since they traded Trae Young, and before that, when Trae was injured, he's handled just so many different responsibilities in this Hawks offense that I didn't fully expect him to
Yeah.
handle. Quite frankly, I thought he would step in and maybe scale up to be like a 14 point a game guy, but not scale up to this degree. And then I really agree with the point about the defense. I feel like that is something I did penalize Johnson and Denny with a little bit.
Yeah.
And he really has, to me, he's been their best defender throughout most of the season. Dyson Daniels, I feel like they're really interchangeable in that regard. But from what I've watched, I think Nikhil has taken on a little bit more difficult matchups. And I feel like that paired with his immense offensive growth sort of wraps it up for me. And then I know we were talking about earlier as what do you value, but I feel like this is the clear case where it's a guy sort of in the middle of his career taking this unexpected leap that
Yeah.
absolutely nobody saw coming. Whereas a guy like Duran, he's still second place, so I don't want to knock him too much, but he is younger, so it's
Yeah.
a little bit more expected in some ways. And then same thing with some of the other guys you could talk about in this award.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. I think people forget, yeah, Nikhil's from the 2019 draft class, which, um, it's crazy to think that that class has been around for this long. But, yeah, he's 27 years old, and like you said, kind of, he's always been getting minutes, and he's been, a relevant NBA player for several years now. But yeah, popping like this is crazy. So, um, yeah, it's cool. We'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. And another fun subplot, if he does win it, I believe that would be back-to-back most improved players for the Hawks, which is
Oh
totally
yeah,
cool. And I
that's
do
crazy.
think Quinn Snyder is a very underrated coach.
Definitely, yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I'm excited to see how how they do in the playoffs. I think I checked the standings again after last night. I don't know if they because I know they lost, and I don't know if they're going to slip to the. I think they had a chance to. I guess they could have like locked up the 5 seed. I think the Raptors are still alive, but um, I did watch. I mean, the Cavs Hawks game last night was really fun. So if that's a first round series, I would still pick the Cavs, but I think it's a really fun matchup. So I guess if they slip to 6, they probably play the Knicks, and they just play the Knicks tight the other night. I don't know if you saw that one with CJ shot almost at the buzzer tying it, but yeah, I mean, yeah, it's gonna be fun to see the Hawks in the playoffs and see what Quinn Snyder does. So
Yeah, absolutely. That should be super interesting. And I don't know if I would pick them like you said,
right.
but in a possible series with the Cavs or Knicks, I wouldn't count them out. But yeah, I think we can move on to six man of the year here. So who did you have as your number three for six man of the year?
For 3, I had Nas Reed, so familiar name, obviously, former winner. I think he gets overlooked a little too quickly, maybe because he has won it before. Maybe because of the Wolves. Again, back to the Minnesota point, it's been a really awkward season for them. But I still think he gets overlooked a little too quickly in a lot of cases. I think it's another award where you can make a case for a lot of guys. Maybe just kind of depends on where you're kind of locked in on the season, what kind of guys and teams you're focusing on. Um, I've seen a lot of guys make a case for Nas for second as well, but a lot of the impact metrics aren't that different from last year. Again, despite kind of a weird Minnesota year, Ant getting hurt, some roster turnover as well. The on off isn't as strong because of that, but Minnesota's defense is still really, really good when he's on the floor. And it's hard. I don't know. It's hard to ignore 14 a game off the bench from a center who's shooting like 36 to 37% from three. So I had Nas third here.
I had a different Minnesota Timberwolf, and for
Okay.
most of the season, as someone who writes about the team every day, I
Yeah, yeah,
wouldn't have expected this. I thought Nas for most of the season, and maybe this is me just being a prisoner of the moment and some
yeah.
recency bias, because throughout the season, I think Nas has had a really, really solid season overall. But really, post All Star break, he's been dealing with a shoulder injury and he hasn't been close
Tough.
to himself. He's been shooting below 30% from three.
Yeah,
He
it's
has
kind of
had a
cooled
couple
off.
nice games recently, yeah. But in general, he's really cooled off. And I feel like throughout the totality of the season, he had a really strong middle portion, but the end just hasn't totally been there for me. And, for most of the season, he was their lone source of bench production, and he was super valuable. And I was thinking, hey,
Right.
he could win a second six man of the year. But I feel like that knocks his value a little bit. I would still have him fourth, and I definitely considered him in third here. But yeah, I went with Ayo Dosunmu. I
Yeah,
think this is
that's good.
A little, maybe a little recency bias because he's just been so awesome lately. Especially when the Timberwolves have been dealing with their injuries to Ant and Jaden. He's really stepped up. He's scaled up. He's been started in that time. But throughout most of the season, I think he doesn't have a ton of starts. I think he has less than 20 starts. He's just been such an awesome player, and then I mean, he's been the perfect fit with the Timberwolves. I think everyone sort of realizes that now, but. Throughout the entire season, going back to his time with Chicago, I think he was super valuable, and understandably that kind of went under the radar because the Bulls are pretty terrible, but he
Yeah.
just provides so much value overall, whether it's his finishing, defense, connective playmaking, secondary shot creation, spot up shooting. He's having an awesome year from three, shooting well over 40%. So I just value his all around impact, and maybe I'm just drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit because he's been such a valuable part
That's
to the
great.
team that I cover, but ultimately, I think he deserves this honor, and he's really cemented himself since the deadline as a key part of this Timberwolves future.
No, that's great. I mean, I'm kind of kicking myself for not thinking of him because yeah, you're right. Like he's been fantastic for you guys. So yeah, I don't have any problems with that pick at all. So I like it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I do think Nas is probably going to get the nod when they do the final three
Yeah,
reveal, or maybe
I could see
Reed
it
Shepard or someone like that. However, I think Io's deserving, and he's just gone a little under the radar, especially because of that
yeah,
Chicago time. But yeah,
for sure.
who do you have as your runner up here?
Runner up, I have a guy who thinks he should probably finish first, and it's Keldon Johnson. He's I think it's his, I guess, third year coming off the bench for San Antonio, kind of being their sixth man. It's interesting because like if you just look at like raw points per game, it's not as high as it's been in the past. Obviously, a few years ago he was a full time starter for them, but I think he's really slid into like kind of just your this kind of your just traditional microwave scorer off the bench, which in the past it's kind of been like the usual six man archetype, like your Lou Williams or your Jamal Crawford, like the guy who comes off the bench and just provides immediate offense. I've tried to be a little more nuanced with how I look at six man in recent years, but it's hard to argue against a guy who does that, but does it like really, really efficiently. 52% from the field, even though again career low volume. Well, not quite career low volume. Basically, since his rookie year, 37% from three. Um, Grabs a few rebounds. Not doesn't really fit kind of into a playmaking role. That's not really what they ask him to do. But I don't know, just really efficient offense off the bench. He's played in 80 games. He'll probably end up playing in all 82 for a team that's going to win close to 63 games, potentially 62 games. Um, yeah, I don't know. I just really like what Cullen does. It just makes me laugh with all the the campaigning a lot of guys have been doing the last few weeks. And you know what? At some point, why not go for it, dude? Toss your name in the ring. But I think he does have a really, really strong case. So I got him second here.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I don't know if you have the same player as I have in second, in first, but I do feel like it is a toss up for me between Jaime Jaquez and Keldon Johnson.
Yeah, that's what I have.
So yeah, I had Jaime Jaquez as my runner up. I think you could easily make a case for him to be first, and I'm curious to see what your argument is there. He's
Mhm.
so versatile, and I'm really happy just in general for him that he's having this bounce back season after suddenly being out of the rotation last year.
Right.
But he's been so valuable to this Heat team, especially in their new look offense. He's been a perfect fit. He moves without the ball so well, but in general, providing that scoring boost as well as providing some really nice rebounding, some solid versatility on defense, and some connective playmaking. I feel like he has a really strong case, and he's been really just so impactful and integral to the Heat all season long. And I've loved the season that he's had, and yeah, I think he's well deserving of a top three finish. And like I said, I think you could make a pretty simple case for him to be number one.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt too. I don't mind if I don't mind Keldon winning it at all as well. I think yeah, it could be just the I was a big fan of Hawkins as a rookie. Obviously had a really awkward 2025, but I love where he's landed this year. Like I said, was one of my favorite rookies in 2024. So it makes me happy to see him kind of ball out for a Heat team that has had kind of an awkward season with Hero being hurt. They've kind of had an up and down season where for I don't know. I just feel like I look at the standings. They go as high as like they were fifth maybe earlier in the year, and then back down to the play-in, and they kind of inched back up maybe into the top six, and they kind of fell back down again. But he always positive when he's on the floor. They're not overwhelmingly positive. I think it's more of a Heat overall thing. But Hawkes clearly impacts winning in a lot of ways. Watching games, he drives a lot, but I didn't realize it until actually looking at the drives numbers. He drives like as much as like some of like the stars in the league who have the ball in their hands all the time. And he's playing obviously less than 30 minutes a game. So I don't know. I like a lot about his game. I hope he eventually develops more of a 3-point shot. It's kind of like the big weakness in his offensive bag, but he's got kind of this mid post game that kind of reminds me of Jimmy Butler. Obviously not on that level, but it's very Jimmy Butler esque. And yeah, I don't know, just a lot to like about Hawkes. Like you said, I think I could see a case for either him or Keldon, but yeah, I went with lean with Hawkes this year because I think I was just happy that he bounced back nicely. So could be a little biased there, but can't go wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. He was such a fun player coming into the draft because he was just the most obvious. Oh, this guy might drop out of the lottery, but he's going to be really good. And
Right?
of
Yeah,
course, the Heat get him. Such a Miami Heat
of
pick.
course.
But he just does so many things well, and I definitely agree with the point. If he can ever develop that 3-point shot, that's just going to be
It's
a
crazy.
huge boost to his game. And he does literally everything else well. The driving stats are really interesting, and I didn't necessarily expect that. I think if you value a little bit more of like that versatility and that playmaking that he brings, I think there's a really clear case for him. I
Yeah,
think I went Keldon mostly because of just the contributions to winning basketball, and that's not entirely Hawkes' fault because this Heat team is just kind of a jumbled mess.
right.
But for Keldon to be this important to a 60 plus win Spurs team, I gave him the slight edge. And overall, Keldon's a guy that I've been super impressed with because I'll be honest, he wasn't always my favorite player in the world. Just because some of the shot selection, he's not a terrific playmaker by any means.
Yeah.
It always just kind of bothered me in some ways, but he's really bought into this role, and I've been super impressed with that. His defense has been better than ever. He's super versatile. He's super tough on defense. He's a great rebounder, and he's just a perfect complement to this Spurs team overall. So I think I leaned a little bit more towards that winning aspect with Keldon, but it's legitimately a coin
Yeah.
flip between him and Hawkes.
Yeah, I think that's the case for Keldon if you're gonna make it. I think you nailed it for sure.
All right, we can move ahead to Coach of the Year here. Who did you have as your third place guy?
Yeah, this is tough because it's like, is it are we looking at the guys who are coach of the best teams in the league? How much are we weighing this like relative to expectations of the teams themselves heading into the year? So I had a really hard time with this. I ended up going third. I did third with Mitch Johnson for the Spurs. We'll probably have some similar names, and there's one other guy that I'll mention after we reveal our three that I it killed me to leave him off. But yeah, I ended up going Mitch Johnson here. I think even with Wemby kind of being a cheat code, that he's played limited minutes. He's obviously going to, just inch. We'll see if he inches past the 65 game mark. He probably will. But even with that, I just feel like he's been able to kind of navigate these very interesting lineups where the Spurs have like a ton of guards. And I know Wemby kind of enables, Mitch to kind of run these really quirky lineups with just a ton of guards around Wemby because Wemby just has that sort of anti-gravity on defense. Um, but and of course they've nailed draft picks with Castle and Harper recently, so it's not like they don't have like guys who are necessarily overachieving. I just feel like the way that Mitch has been able to kind of contort these interesting lineups around Wemby, whether or not he plays, and obviously they're a lot more positive when Wemby plays. It's not like they're that positive when he's off the floor, but I don't know, just the leap from where they were last year to being a 60 plus win team. It's not just Wemby being awesome because Wemby was awesome last year, and obviously he's better this year. But I think there's a lot of factors that go into them being basically again, a 60 plus win team, and a lot of it has to be coaching, especially for a team with just a lot of young guys and a lot of guys fighting for minutes and a lot of guys trying to make their imprint. I think that just you got to have a really strong culture and a really strong hand at the helm, and that falls on Mitch Johnson. So I had him third here. I like the next two guys just a little bit more. So
Yeah, I think that's a great case for Johnson there. It really hurt me to leave him off. You mentioned some of your toughest
yeah,
omissions.
it's
I'll
hard.
spoil it. He was one of my tougher omissions, and like you said, I tried to mix it up where I'm not just picking three of the best teams in the league because of course these coaches are really good.
Right.
So for one of my third place guy, I went with a team that isn't as good, but relative to expectations, they've been truly exceptional. But yeah, I really like the point about Johnson because the Spurs have been able to sustain a lot of success in the games and minutes when Wemby hasn't played, and that's a huge credit to him. And then in general, you look at this team, they were projected to win 43, 44 games. I remember when I did my offseason preview, I picked the over, and not everyone else on the panel picked the over there.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was a massive surprise for them to be a top three seed. And obviously, a large part of that is Wemby, the young guards, De'Aaron Fox, all this. But I think you do have to give a good amount of credit to Johnson as well. So I
Sure.
definitely like that pick. For me, I had Charles Lee here
Yeah,
as
that's
my
why I
third
left
place
off.
guy.
Yep.
Yeah, man, I was debating between. I'll just I guess I'll spoil
Yeah,
it a
go for
little
it.
bit, but I was debating between him, Mitch Johnson, as well as Jordan Ott, and I feel
Yeah,
like you
that's
could
another
really
tough
give it
one.
to all three of them. But for me, I think what Charles Lee has done with this team is so unique. When you look at their record through 20 games. I think it was like 15 or 5 and 15 rather.
Yeah.
And then that midseason turnaround, honestly, it's nothing like I've ever seen before where they've had one of the best net ratings since the turn of the calendar. And for him to get so much out of this team defensively is totally amazing. And then the offensive sets he runs are just totally fascinating. They are similar to some of the stuff that Joe Mazzulla runs, but I feel like he has his own twist on it. And just watching this Hornets offense, it's so fluid. They get so many great open shots, and I feel like it's a huge testament to him as a coach. And
Yeah.
then that paired with just the culture he's built in Charlotte to really turn the franchise around, and then really to make sure that nobody sort of leaves the ship, so to speak. In the middle of the season, when they're going through those struggles, and there were LaMelo Ball trade rumors, all this, for him to turn around and right the ship, it was just really incredible and one of the more impressive coaching jobs of the season. Despite the Hornets still being a fringe playoff team, I feel like he deserves a ton
No,
of credit.
definitely. Yeah, no, I think if you, yeah, if you go back to where they turned it around, they've point blank been one of the best teams in the league for like 75% of the season. So, and I mean, even then, if you know, like on Basketball Reference, they have expected win loss based on like how much they're beating teams and the quality of their opponents. And I've never seen like there probably are some examples, but I've never seen this much of disparity between a team's record and their expected record. They're like playing like they're profiling like a 52 win team and they're 43 and 37, right? So I mean they're just straight up like one of the like 6 or 7 best teams in the league right now. Um and none of it feels like that fluky after like they've kind of settled in. And cause, I mean, they kind of had like when they first kicked it off, like in January, they had like they beat the Jazz by like 50 in one game, and they were kind of beating up on some bad teams, but then they were like still beating other teams by like 15 to 20, and then like their main five of you know Musa, Lamelo, Miller, Knuppel, and Bridges was like still like you know overwhelmingly positive, and it kept going and going and going, and then I'm watching them play the Celtics last night, and I know Boston won, but I'm just like I hope they don't have to play him in the first. Because you know I'm a Celtics fan. Like I hope we don't have to play him in the first round because that would suck. Like I think we'd win, but like would it go like 6 games probably? So yeah, no, I really thought about Charles Lee and I almost put him and I'm regretting it a little bit, but you know it's one of the yeah. So I think you made a really good case for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to go wrong with any of these top three guys. Have all
Yeah,
done such fantastic jobs, really. And yeah, I mean, I think this Hornets team has a ton of upside in the playoffs. I'm not saying they're going to win a championship or anything crazy, but
right, right.
upside in terms of pulling off a first round upset at the very least. As a Celtics fan as well, I am a little bit scared of that possibility. And if I were the Pistons, quite frankly, I would be terrified of that
Oh
matchup with
yeah,
the Hornets. I feel like the Hornets match up really well against the Pistons, considering some of their offensive limitations. And if that's the first round matchup, I might very well pick the Hornets.
right, right.
Yeah, who would
Um,
you have at number two?
yeah, number two, I feel bad because he's gonna finish second for the second straight year. That's JB Bickerstaff. Um, Yeah, I mean, took a 19 win team to 44, and took a 44 win team to possibly 60 this year. Obviously had to navigate stuff without Cade, had to navigate you know roster with a lot of unproven guys. There's a lot of turnover as well. You know, team was really good last year, and I think they clearly profiled to like potentially be you know a little bit better this year. I think their over under was like 46 and a half, 45 and a half this year, or something like that. I think I went like slight under. I'm like I don't know, maybe I see one more year from the Pistons before I'm like hammering the over on their preseason stuff, but got off to a hot start. Kind of had a little bit of a mid-season lull, and they kind of just powered through it. You know, again, powered through Cade being out for a while, and just getting like really cool contributions out of guys like you know Ron Holland and Dennis Jenkins, and a lot of guys who again are like unproven. You got to give them a lot of credit for like upping their game and scaling up, and you know stepping in when their name's been called. But that's also on like you know on Bickerstaff and the staff to you know pull the right levers and press the right buttons with everything like that. Marcus Sasser, just thinking of a few guys who have been like really, really important for them. Um, so yeah, I went JB Bickerstaff. Again, I know it's like, you know, a little bit of a winning bias with them being a 58 win team and locking up the one seed, but yeah, I just think that just for like the job that he did, I think it needs to be yeah, recognized.
Yeah, I had JB here as well. And yeah, like you said, I do feel a little bit bad because this could be 2 years in a row finishing second. And
Yeah.
Personally, I do think he deserved the award last year,
Right.
considering just the miraculous turnaround they had. And this year you could make a case, although the number one guy I feel like is kind of unimpeachable at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe we're just a little biased, but in general, like you said, I mean, yeah, you really nailed it there. The success he's had without Cade, leveling up once again, I think is a huge surprise. When you look at expectations heading into the year, they didn't have a super active offseason, and I don't think you can argue that they really got all that much better, and
Hmm.
they were able to go up from the six seed to the one. I thought they could maybe be around the same, maybe 4, 5, 6 range. But I never envisioned this team as the number one seed in the East, quite frankly. And then early
Right.
on in the season, it was very clear that was a possibility. And yeah, JB deserves a ton of credit. The offense that they run is like super unique because they don't shoot too well from three. They don't shoot a ton of 3 pointers. But just the physicality that they play with and how well they're able to move off the ball and generate shots at the rim, I feel like that's a credit to JB. And then the defensive culture and infrastructure that he's installed has also been a big boon to this team.
Yeah, I completely agree.
All right, number one, I
Yeah.
assume we have the same
I
guy.
think we spoiled it. Yeah, I got Coach Maz here. I got Joe. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's hard to say much what hasn't already been said about Joe and about the Celtics this year. They're kind of the story of the season. Up there with like again, like the Hornets and the Suns and some of these other fun overachieving teams, the Hawks the second half of the year. But I think just the consistency from start to finish, on top of the fact that they're going to be like a top two seed. Um, for me, what really cemented it, funny enough, it's like obviously it's like, oh yeah, they were so good without Tatum for like the majority of the year. For me, it's the fact that he came back, and also this is a testament to Tatum and how awesome he is. But he came back, and they are like very clearly better because there was, it's like they look like two different teams as far as like the style of play they were playing before Tatum, and obviously since he's come back, where Tatum can take a lot more of the ball, they can run some different sets, they can really slow it down. Whereas the first half of the year they were like a top two or three offense for like the majority of the year. It's because they were zipping the ball around, had a ton of shooters. Um, I don't know. It's just been like really, it's really cool. I know I'm more fixated on it, I'm more biased, but it's been really cool just to see how just this team has with so much turnover from last year and with tons of unproven guys like Luka Garza, Hugo Gonzalez, Baylor Shireman, um, you know, miss him, Anthony Simons for the first half of the year before he was traded. Just so many guys come in and just be such valuable contributors. Where like before the year, even myself, I'm like this. These supporting pieces were getting hammered. I was seeing people saying like, "Oh, is this even like a mid-30s win team?" It's like Luka Garza, what has he done? And now here I am listening to podcasts from some of the biggest names in media, and they're like, "Oh, the Celtics are so deep; they can do this, they can do that." And I'm like, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, it might be the coach. It might be what Joe is able to get out of these guys. And I think that again, just the fact that Tatum's been able to come back and they have not skipped a beat at all. Um, just yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's I could go on, and just how they kind of embody his personality and the clear culture that he has there. I know he kind of gets memed a bit for some of his press conference answers, but it's like that's him. Like that, he's just super genuine with how he approaches things. He has such an awesome staff. I love Sam Cassell. I love a lot of the guys on the Celtics staff, but yeah, again, I know I'm biased. I know I'm super locked in on the Celtics, but yeah, I got Coach Joe here. I don't think that would piss off too many people to say that. So it's a defensible choice, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Even though we're both Celtics fans, I think the vast majority of NBA fans and NBA media who actually vote on the award will be voting for Joe Maz, and I can't wait to see how he
His
accepts the
reaction.
award. Because yeah, I don't know if you saw the press
Oh
conference, but
yeah.
he's like, "Oh,
Oh yeah.
I don't ever want to talk about it again. Stupid award."
Yeah. Don't talk about it.
Just
Yeah.
classic Joe Maz.
So funny.
But yeah, he's so hilarious. But yeah, I mean, this team has exceeded all expectations, even among Celtics fans. I had them
Hmm.
as the 7 seed, and I love
Yeah.
your point
Same.
about how uh, the everything's really turned in the sense that, oh, this team has nothing. This is the worst front court in the league. To,
Yep.
oh, all of a sudden it's a deep Celtics team
Didn't
again
even
who
mention
can
Kata
win the
either.
title.
Like, Kate, all these guys having like career years, and it's like obviously credit to them and the work they put in. But it's like, I mean, I don't know. I think you don't get that kind of leap and those kind of like that kind of impact without like just a really solid coaching system. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so much is made out of the offense and how they can generate great shots and everything. Listen, everything about the offense is great, and it's amazing that they really haven't skipped a beat despite losing all the players that they did in the offseason. But I'm also just super impressed with defensively because I feel like that was my bigger concern. I always knew that Missoula had an awesome offensive system, and their ability to generate open shots always stood out within the past few years. I was like, I feel like they can sort of replicate that, and I had faith in Jalen Brown as this number one option, but I was like, how are they really going to survive on defense without some of the rim protection that they lost? And Tatum, I feel like, is a super underrated defender. Drew Holiday, all of this. I had real concerns about the defense, and the defense hasn't skipped a beat either, and
Yeah,
they're still top 10 on
it's
both ends
crazy.
of the floor. And I mean, credit the players for improving, but you also got to give a ton of credit to Joe Maz, and I think he's going to be a well-deserving coach of the year.
Definitely.
All right, I think we can move ahead to one of the bigger awards, and that would be Rookie of the Year. I feel like the top three is pretty clear, but the
Yeah.
order, especially top two, is a little bit debatable. But who did you have here at number three?
Number three, I had VJ. I think that's the clear number three, as well. Yeah, I don't know. It's just been really cool to see, just the Sixers team kind of like be in this really awkward spot heading into the year in terms of like their trajectory. It's like, hey, what are they going to do in the future? You have, Paul George and Embiid on the books. Um, and obviously Maxi has like a real like legit All NBA case. I think he should be All NBA this year. Um, but I don't think they really are where they are without like the production and like the support of VJ in the backcourt. And obviously, like any rookie, there's going to be some ups and downs in terms of efficiency and like figuring the game out, getting a feel for things. Kind of having a lighter frame from being so young. But I don't know, like I love his backstory. Love like clear like the work ethic and the kind of guy that he is to get to where he is now. Just a lot like lot to like about him. His intangibles, his size, like his approach to the game, and he's had some really massive games as well. So I don't know, big fan of VJ Edgecombe. I would not be shocked to see him, be an all star like in the next like 2 or 3 years, to be completely honest. So, yeah, I got VJ here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like this is just such a testament to how deep this rookie class
Yeah,
is that he's
really good.
third place. Because last year, I think he definitely would have won the award. And in many other years, he would have won the award. But yeah, he's having an awesome season. And
Mm.
being able to contribute right from the get go on a winning basketball team is huge. And the scoring he's provided has been massive, especially with Joel Embiid obviously being in and out of the lineup. That backcourt of VJ and Maxi has been really massive. And I mean, we saw it. I mean, literally his first game in the NBA going up against the Celtics is like, whoa, this kid is the real deal. And he's been awesome. The defense, the two-way potential is there. Defensively, I think there's still room to grow, but he projects to be a real two-way force throughout the rest of his career. And yeah, the offense is totally there. And I'm impressed with just how polished his offensive game is. I thought he was pretty clearly a top five guy coming into the draft, but I didn't know how immediate everything would be. But he's really proven that he's the real deal, and he does have legitimate star potential.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, to your point, this draft, I mean, it's like really, really deep already. Obviously, the top two is pretty set in stone, but aside from those guys, it's hard to leave off like Dylan Harper and Cedric Coward, Derek Queen, Jeremiah Fears. I don't know. There's like just like a lot of really like productive players already, and we'll see how many guys can sustain that. But yeah, it's a fun class. So
Yeah, absolutely. It should be super interesting to monitor going forward. But yeah, who did you have as your runner up? And I guess we could talk about the top two guys in the same
yeah,
breath,
dude,
'cause, everyone kind of knows.
so I went back and forth a lot, honestly. So throughout most of the season, I had one guy, and then the other guy started to pull me for a little bit, and I was on that side for a bit, and then I think I kind of went back to their side, by no fault. I'll start naming it. So I have Cooper second, I have Con first. I think you can go either way. I'm not mad at Cooper Flag being first. I just and Cooper Flag's having a season that would be rookie of the year in like 99% of all other NBA seasons in NBA history. Um, he got thrown into this horrendous Dallas Mavericks context, not only in terms of like the roster quality itself, but just like the nature of like where Dallas was heading into the season, where obviously they stumbled butt first into the first pick last year, but just like no Luca, and now like all these expectations are thrown on such a young player, and he's immediately put into a situation where he's basically playing out of position. Just has like a ton of just a ton on his plate. Where I don't know. So like when I make the con case, I'll make it for a different reason. But when people make the con case in terms of like, oh, look at like, Cooper isn't impacting winning the same way Con is if you look at on off. And if you look at efficiency, it's like they're playing completely different roles and have completely different responsibilities and burdens. So that's not where I'm not even docking Cooper. I'm just like super, super high on Con and what he's done for the Hornets. Like Cooper's had some massive scoring games lately, which, came on really strong like the last month or so especially in terms of his efficiency. Where it kind of started to sway me a little bit. And I'm like, I'm overthinking this. He's clearly going to be the best player in this draft. And then I kind of settled back in on Con. So like I said, I don't mind it either way. I think Cooper's clearly like on trajectory to be like an all-time player. Someone who I think not just all-star, but all NBA like in the next like 2 or 3 years, to be completely honest. Yeah, I just think he got dealt like a really really kind of crappy hand in Dallas, and he's making the best out of it. And I think they have a clear building block, and we'll see if they trade him in like 7 or 8 years. But I don't know. Yeah, I got Cooper second, and yeah, couldn't be more happy with his rookie year considering everything. It just yeah, if he didn't happen to play in the same season as not only like the best off-ball rookie, but the best off-ball player in the entire league, then he would have won the award, and that's really what it is for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that's a great argument, and I definitely agree. You could go either way. I've been going
Mm.
back and forth, really all season, but especially leading up to this podcast. I'm like Connor Cooper.
I'd
Oh,
had a tough time, dude.
it's tough. I mean, this was one of the. We can talk about some of the other tougher calls later, but this was definitely one of the toughest ones. But yeah, for me, I went Con two, and I don't think this should be a shot against his rookie season.
Yeah,
It's been historic on so many levels, especially the 3 point shooting. Obviously, for him to step into the league and immediately be the second best 3 point shooter in the entire NBA is absolutely
crazy.
absurd. And I mean, I've said this on various podcasts just in passing, but it's crazy how much upside he has because heading into the league, I was like, he's going to be I thought he was going to be a very good player by all means. However, I thought he would be more in that like Desmond Bain kind of role, and I thought that would be a ceiling. And then 20 games into it, I'm like, hey, is he already better than Desmond Bain? What exactly is this guy's ceiling?
It's crazy.
Because he's been absolutely insane. And then that paired with how much the Hornets have won and exceeded expectations, as we talked about earlier, I think that gives him a really, really strong case. And I definitely can't be mad at him as number one at all. With that being said, I guess I'll quickly go over my Cooper case.
Yeah,
I think obviously Khan's been fantastic, but Cooper just handles so many different responsibilities on that Mavericks team. Like you said, he's playing out of position, and he really, obviously, I'm not going to say he has had no bad games, but he hasn't had as many growing pains as I would have expected if you had told
definitely.
me just how many injuries the Mavericks have dealt with throughout the season, how he's had to play point guard through some of the season, and what he's been able to do with absolutely nothing around him is totally insane. I feel like he's further along as a shot creator than I anticipated. Even though he was obviously number one pick for a reason. And he was awesome at Duke. I didn't think he would step in and be this level of a shot creator from day one, and then that paired with his defense and just the fact that he's had really no help throughout the season, I feel like gives him the slight edge, but you really can't go wrong with either of these guys. It's a complete coin flip.
Yeah, yeah. No, I completely agree. Yeah, I think could have put it better. You have a guy who's like having one of the most efficient rookie seasons ever. One of the best off-ball players in the league. Do it on a team that, like we talked about earlier, is like one of the best teams in the league, at least over the last 3 or 4 months. And then a guy who had like all the expectations in the world and has on. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think Cooper's even exceeded what he's been able to do his first year. So yeah, I don't think you go wrong either way. Um, you know how to guess who's gonna win it. I think Khan's probably gonna get it, but I don't know. I guess we'll see. I think it's genuinely gonna be pretty close with the voting. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think you could legitimately go either way. I think it's going to be a case where it's like whoever wins gets like 55 out of the
yeah, exactly.
100 first place votes or something.
Hmm.
And yeah, super fun. But yeah, any closing thoughts before we move ahead to DPOY?
No, I let's do DPOY.
So yeah, who did you have as your number three for DPOY?
So I think there's yeah I think this is an award where outside of number one, you can make a case for like 10 guys, which is why I'm glad we have all defense teams. Uh, for like second and third. So for third, I actually went with I could have gone chalk and just done like Chet or even Rudy. I actually went with Scotty Barnes third. Um, I think Chet's gonna land on a lot of first team all defense ballots. He's on mine. I think he's gonna finish top three probably. I think he's gonna even land on some all NBA ballots. But and then speaking of Rudy, I think he was having another phenomenal year. Speaking of the Timberwolves, I think he's still one of the best at defending screen coverages and like switching onto guards and like hedging and recovering. I think Gobert is like honestly kind of underrated now with his defense, just because he's already won it so much, and there's just kind of just this weird narrative or perception around Gobert and his switching and everything. It's just I don't know. He doesn't let guards turn the corner easily on him. I just think Rudy's still awesome. But as far as Barnes goes, I think he's just an all around pit bull. I think he's genuinely the closest thing to a modern day Pippen, LeBron, Kawhi type forward on defense. Like he literally does like everything, like rim protection, rebounding, random double teams, navigating screens, on ball hounding. Like he does everything like at a good or great level. Um, his defensive playmaking stats are really good too. Like his stop percentage, his deflections. I don't know, just elite all around. He takes really tough assignments. He can guard any kind of assignment. I don't. I value a lot of what Barnes can do, and he's doing it in a winning context for a team that's gonna be top six in the playoffs. So Yeah, I went with Scotty here. Just kind of random. I won't be mad if anyone doesn't have him in the top three, but I'm like, I don't know. That's kind of cool. Cool season he's having, so I got him third.
Yeah, I love the Scotty pick. He's been one of my favorite players in the league for a while. Pretty clearly an all defensive type of guy, and like you
Yeah,
said, I feel like outside of the top one, who I think he could be unanimous at this point, but
yeah,
2 through 7, it's really
so hard.
you're splitting hairs. Quite frankly, and
Exactly.
I definitely considered Scotty here. The versatility is incredible, and then when you just look at this Raptors team. They don't profile at all as a top 10 defense outside of him, and he's really just been the glue that's holding everything together. I know the numbers don't totally bear that out, but
Yeah,
frankly, there's no reason that they should be a top 10 defense in any way, and it's just a credit really to his versatility and overall impact. So, yeah, I really love the Scotty pick. For me, I did have Rudy Gobert. I
love
don't
it.
know if
Yeah,
you have him at 2, but I feel like you could go 2, 3. When Wemby was hurt earlier in the year, I was like, whoa, is Rudy about to get his fifth DPOY potentially?
no, seriously, yeah,
But that would have been totally insane and deservingly so, for what it's worth. But yeah, the rim protection is obviously incredible. For all the talk about like Wemby as a nevermind defender, which again he fully deserves.
yeah,
I feel like Gobert's impact goes a little bit under the radar, and I mean the Timberwolves defense, they definitely have this reputation as like, oh, a great all around defense, but throughout the season it hasn't been the case, and Gobert has been the glue that's holding everything together.
yeah.
They're 11.4 points per 100 possessions better with him on the court per
It's crazy.
cleaning the glass, which is in the 99th percentile.
It's
And throughout
crazy.
most of the year, it was like they are the best defense in the league, or maybe the second best defense in the league with him on the court, and then they're a bottom three defense when he's off the court. And that just speaks volumes to his overall impact. And I like your point earlier about his versatility. It's super underrated. He's statistically one of the better isolation defenders, which
Yeah, he is.
social media wouldn't tell you, but that's factually correct. And I feel like for me, this is my first year covering the Timberwolves. It took me watching 82 games of Rudy Gobert to fully understand his impact.
Yeah.
Obviously, I wasn't like, whoa, Rudy Gobert's good at defense, what? But to fully understand all the nuances of how he impacts the game, it took me a full season watching him, and I definitely debated having him a spot higher. I don't think you can have him at 1 because of Wemby, but
Right, right.
I debated having him at 2 potentially, and throughout the season, I thought there was a chance, like I said, if Wemby was injured, that he would end up winning DPOY number 5.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. No, yeah, like I said, I very much considered having him at that spot. So, yeah, I think just kind of underrated at this point. It's funny. So, but yeah, number two, it's kind of out of left field, and I'm gonna be called a homer for sure. But I got Derek White second. um, so I don't know. We were talking about earlier where it's like, okay, obviously Missoula has this really strong offensive infrastructure, but how is their defense still so good? And I don't know. It really is like Derek White. It's kind of there's a lot of positive defenders on the Celtics. Um, and I'm not expecting everyone to have Derek White second. I fully admit my bias here, but like I don't know, he's the smartest off-ball defender in the NBA. He's the best rim protecting guard in the league by like a country mile. He's just super instinctive. He's prepared. He's super quick. He's like always willing to sacrifice his body. Boston allows 10.7 fewer points per 100 when he's on the floor, so like the impact is there as well. Like Boston's defense being, I think they have the fourth ranked defense, I think fifth in the league. Like it being that high is like clearly because like when Derek's on the floor. Data Baller has a shot quality RAPM machine that you can run for offense or defense. It has 3-year time decay, so it basically takes possessions from the last 3 years and more heavily weights the current season. And they have a defense shooting impact metric that takes into account your impact on shot quality, not letting opponents get to the free throw line, and then like actually like contesting shots and affecting that quality in that sense. The top four in that are Gobert, Chet, Wemby, and then Derek White is fourth, which is insane. And the only other guard in the top tier is SGA, which I thought was really interesting. Some of that, is kind of contextual with OKC just being a good defensive team, but I think it's crazy that Derek White is like, in terms of impact on that level. Per Basketball Index, he's 97th percentile in defensive LeBron versus roll average. He's fourth in the league in rim deterrence. Like, I don't know. I think it's interesting because I wouldn't say he's like necessarily the most lockdown on ball defender, but he just does everything so well. He flies around so much, and his impact is just unbelievable. I don't think he's going to finish second. I don't even think he's going to get like top three, but I kind of wanted to come out of left field here. Obviously, I can mention like again Rudy, Chet, Osar, Mobley. I think there's a few other guys you can mention, but I just had to make a little bit of Derek White case there. So
I mean, yeah, I think that was an awesome case, and he covers so much ground for the Celtics team. It's incredible how much ground he covers, and the rim protection stuff that he provides at
It's
his
actually
size as a
insane,
guard
dude.
is
Yeah,
it blows my mind every year, and I feel like this year it's reached new heights because of so many of the defensive pieces that they lost, and he's been able to really help hold it together. I feel like part of the reason I didn't have him in my top three, I did have him on one of my all defensive
yeah,
teams, but it was just sort of the on ball stuff, excuse me, with him isn't as elite. And
yeah,
I did have an on ball stopper, and then that paired with Kata's impact on defense, which I think has gone a little bit under the radar and has been
fair.
really huge. I think I bumped him down a bit, but I definitely think it's an awesome case, and some of those stats were truly incredible. And yeah, Derek White's absolutely one of my favorite
He's my
players
man.
in the
Yeah,
league, so no complaints from me
yeah,
having him in
yeah.
the top three. And I definitely like just thinking outside the box a little bit and not just going off consensus, which I think is pretty easy to do. When coming up with these awards, I feel like I went a little bit outside of the box here,
Yeah.
but not to the same extent. I went with Star Thompson as
Okay,
my
yeah,
runner
that's
up,
great.
and
No, that's awesome.
I was debating it. I would say it was a really tough call, especially 2 through 4. Chet was the other guy, and it stinks to leave him off,
Yeah.
but those three guys are totally interchangeable to me. Um, and yeah, I mean, I was talking with our guy Finn Keel a couple
Mhm.
weeks ago, and I was like, yeah, I think I'd have Asar like closer to 4 on the DPOY rankings. I think like Gobert, and I also mentioned Scotty Barnes. Funny enough,
Nice.
I was like, I think they're just so important to their team's success, whereas Asar has a little bit more help around him, and I've definitely changed my mind a little bit on that. Not that he doesn't have more help than some of those other teams, but the role that he plays is just so incredible, and he takes on the hardest matchups every single game, and he's one of the few players that can truly take stars out of games. He ranks super high for matchup difficulty, and then if you look at some of the stats in terms of holding opponents to low field goal percentages, I feel like he is the definitive perimeter stopper in this league at this
Yeah.
point. And then that paired with his impact as a defensive playmaker, it's not quite to the Derek White level in terms of his defensive playmaking, but he's definitely one of the better guards, and he can really switch. He can play up. He can guard big men if need be, and then he can wreak havoc off the ball, blocking shots, grabbing steals, doing all of that. So I do really value that, especially on a top three defense in the league. So I give the edge to Asar here for number two.
Nice. Yeah, I don't have any issue with that at all. So I think it's a fantastic case. And yeah, I mean, he's insane. I think he's clearly, um, like, I don't know how many perimeter defenders are better than him, if any. So I'm with you on that. But yeah, I mean, I think number one doesn't leave a lot to, it's obviously Wemby. He's gonna win this unanimously, and if he doesn't, that's gonna be really interesting to see the person who has to explain themselves as to why. But yeah, I don't need to spend a ton of time on him. Just like eye test, impact metrics, everything you can look at screams that he's DPOY, and he's probably gonna win a lot more than just this one. So I mean, he's just doing stuff that's never been done before in a league that's just more awesome, just as offensively inclined as it's ever been. Um, yeah, I don't know. He leads the league in like a lot of things, but specifically all the nopes and the never minds that he caused on drives. I know some people like to kind of clown those, but I think it's unless you like really watch a Spurs game and just see how much like he's just like constantly like pushing away like a magnet kind of thing, like a magnet pushing away instead of attracting. It's actually insane what he does, and even like with all the nopes that he has, like he's still like almost 4 blocks per 75 possessions. The Spurs defense is still like 10 points better when he's on the floor, even though they have like a lot of like pit bulls like in Stephon Castle and all that. It's just yeah, I don't know. It's just Wemby. So
Yeah, it's Wemby. It's hard to imagine a case for someone else. I could imagine maybe a scenario where he gets like 99 of the 100 first place votes, and some beat reporter on, I don't know, I just because we talked about Asar, the Pistons or something votes for Asar. It's something where bias comes into play. I think would have to be the only case against him. But yeah, you summed it up nicely. The defensive impact is totally insane. Not just altering opponent's mindset when he's on the court, but you can visibly see watching Spurs games how much the mindset changes when he's off the court, and they just attack the rim a lot more. And then that paired with him somehow being able to rack up blocks is insane, and he's just a true luxury for them. And yeah, he's the alien. There's not much to be said about him
yeah,
in terms of the DPOY race. I feel like MVP is where it gets a little bit more
interesting.
interested. So we can switch gears there. And who did you have as your third place for MVP?
This is tough. So I'll be honest. I did kind of operate, and I kind of made it easier on myself. Because we have the curious case of Luca as to what's going to happen with him. So until I get some definitive, I was kind of operating on where he's at right now. So I'm going to assume that Luca might get his appeal rejected, or I don't know. We'll see. So until I get some Luca clarification, so I have Wemby third actually. Um, I think that defense absolutely matters. But to me, at least in terms of like MVP races, it's usually like a multiplier on top of like your offensive foundation, not necessarily like the foundation itself. And Wemby could be completely redefining what it means to be like MVP in terms of like defense being like the foundation for what he does. But I think for right now, this kind of spoils my number two and then my number one. I lean Jokic over Wemby for now because again the impact is generational defensively, but I'm not sure I'm ready to put that case over like Jokic, who's clearly like still a historically great offensive engine. Um, that said, if Wemby's offensive role keeps growing, and I'm going to assume that it does, he's going to win this award probably as soon as next year. Um, and like I said, Wemby could be flipping this whole idea on its head that game warping defense is like the MVP definer in terms of how he is able to completely just control the game on that end. But for now, this is where I land. Like, would I be upset if he finished third, second, or even first? Absolutely not. I had a really tough time. I'm going to assume that you had a really tough time as well. Um, but yeah, I mean, as his games played goes up, as his minutes played go up, and his offensive game gets bigger over the coming seasons, I'd be shocked if he doesn't. And he could blow our socks off in the postseason this year. I could look extra stupid. Um, but yeah, I think for now it's kind of because with these guys, and I think with the four guys, if you're including Luca, you don't really need stats for them. Like all their statistical cases are impeachable. So I think when I listen to people like make statistical cases for the MVP this year, I kind of tune out a little bit. It just kind of comes down to like what your philosophy is and what you value. Like, are you looking at the best offensive ecosystem? Like, who's lifting the heaviest? That might be Luca, honestly. So if you value the heaviest lift, you might have Luca higher. If you're looking at total impact, then that's probably Wemby. So I don't know. I was trying to like weigh. I'm like, what do I care about in the MVP race? And that's kind of where I landed for right now. I'm open to that changing, but I think for now I have Wemby third.
Yeah, I landed at Wemby for my number three as well. I think the defensive stuff is obviously immensely valuable. And I like your point that he could just simply be redefining everything. And needless to say, Wemby is going to win at least one MVP, probably closer to five or six MVPs throughout his career. But yeah, ultimately this year, I just think the consistency and the body of work wasn't at that Jokic shade level. It was just a
Right.
shade below it, and I can definitely understand the case, especially if you really value defense, if you value the fact that the Spurs are a 60-win team, and a lot of that's due to Wemby. If you value the fact that his gravity opens up shots for his teammates on offense. If you value all of that, I can totally understand the case. But for me personally, I feel like just the consistency wasn't totally there. There was just a few games where the offense wasn't totally caught up to the defense. That's,
Yeah.
natural for a third year player, but there was a few moments of inconsistency. And then the fact that he played under 30 minutes a game, I believe, did hurt
Yeah.
his case just a little bit for me. And I mean, the margins are so thin, but between these top three guys that you're really
You're splitting hairs.
nitpicking.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. To an extent, but that's where it came down to for me, where I sort of penalized Wemby. But his impact on both ends of the court is incredibly immense. And when you look at how good this Spurs team is, I can totally understand a case for him to be higher, if not first place.
Yeah. Definitely. But yeah, I mean, to your point, I think second, then I have Jokic. Possibly like the most. I think it's the most complete offensive season of all the players here, and with playmaking plus efficiency plus what he offers in terms of rebounding. Not to be just a PRA guy, but like I don't know, like Jokic is clearly more than just that. It's the same. If you're gonna make a Jokic case, it's the same case that it's been for 5 seasons now, pretty much. Um, because he's won it before and we've seen it before. The narrative is probably a little less flashy. I think people probably see like Jamal Murray having like a career year and like maybe like subconsciously penalize Jokic a little bit because Jamal Murray's been All NBA this year. Um, but I don't know. I mean, like Jokic missed a little bit of time. They were still pretty good when he didn't play this year. I was actually really surprised how they kind of stayed afloat when Jokic didn't play. And that's not to say that he's any less valuable than he's been in years before. Like in 5 to 10 game stretches when stars are out, there's a lot of like variability and just such small samples like that. But again, to your point, when like I'm trying to like really like nitpick and be like, okay, who's my MVP? That's what I settled on. Obviously, if someone has Jokic for MVP, I'm not gonna like push back at all on that. But I have Jokic second. So yeah, Wemby then Jokic right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been labeled as a Jokic Glazer at times, and this is now the second year in a row where just slightly he misses out on that top MVP spot for
Yeah,
me.
it's tough.
And that's not a knock against him. He's still had a tremendous season, and the offense has been totally insane. There's not a player on offense that's more impactful than Jokic still. All the advanced numbers are still tremendous, of course.
Right.
The fact that he has this Nuggets team, and obviously Murray's having a career season, they upgraded their depth, all this, but the fact that they're the number one offense in the league according to Cleaning the Glass, I think it is a huge testament to his overall impact as every year you look at this Nuggets offense, it's like, whoa, how are they that good? Well, obviously it's Jokic.
Yeah.
And yeah, just overall he provides just so much value. Obviously, I think where I did just din him slightly was that first 10 to 15 game stretch when he came back from injury. He was turning the ball over a
Yeah,
lot.
I remember that.
The defense wasn't totally there, and to me, I'm not saying that you can never have a bad stretch. And be the MVP. But in this season, when the margins are that thin, it just bumps him to two. And
Right.
quite frankly, if it wasn't for this absurd 10 game stretch from both him and the Nuggets, I would have probably had Wemby as my runner up and Jokic at
Yep.
three. I do really think this 10 game stretch did change my mind because not only has Jokic been amazing, but so has the team, and they've really righted the ship, and it looks like they're going to be the three seed. So yeah, I had Jokic as my number two, but it was super close between him and Wemby, like I mentioned.
Yeah, that's actually exactly how I feel. For a bit there, between him missing, the Nuggets kind of staying afloat, and then when he came back, he didn't look like himself, and that makes sense. You're coming back from injury. I'm not like docking him as like as far as like a where is he in the hierarchy of the league or who I'd want for a playoff series. I'm willing to be a little more nuanced than that. But yeah, in terms of just like MVP, and I need to look at this 82 game sample size, like that stretch when he was hurt and when he first came back does unfortunately matter. But yeah, but they've been crazy lately, and then like I don't know that head to head, especially in the NBA, and I don't know really in any sport, I feel like head to head matchups do matter some, but like I'm not gonna like completely flip my case on that. But I don't know, after like to your point, this recent stretch and then that Spurs Nuggets game last week, it's not like I flipped it just because like, and it's not like Wemby didn't have an awesome game either. But I'm just like, okay, I think I got Jokic second here, and then Wemby third. So, but yeah, then obviously that leaves SGA first, and I think that's not too crazy either. I think he's probably gonna win it. Um, yeah, he's going to play 70 games for a team that will once again win like, mid 60s in terms of wins. Clearly their best player. Also a guy who was like without his number two for the majority of the year. And even when he's played, he hasn't looked quite right yet. So, I mean, that remains to be seen how that will impact the Thunder in the playoffs because they've been a little less dominant in the playoffs over recent seasons compared to their regular season dominance. Um, but I mean, yeah, I mean, just insane efficiency from a guard who I think is just like clearly having one of the best guard peaks of all time. Like he's been doing this since 2023 in terms of just 30 plus points per game, elite playmaking. I think he's peaking as a playmaker right now. I think he's just like even improved in that regard. I think he's peaking as a 3 point shooter. I think, and obviously he's still very clearly a plus defender. Um, I don't know, like he's just one of those guys. He's to the point where like you watch him and you kind of feel like he can just get whatever he wants. And when he's going against your team and he's in the zone, you feel kind of helpless. And that's, that's I think it's one of the defining marks of like, whenever you're talking about the best players in the history of the league, it's like if they're playing your favorite team, like how helpless do you feel? And he's one of those guys where like, he's playing your team and he's in the zone and you feel like like what can you do other than just hope to outgun him or hope that he, gets in his head a little bit or whatever. But yeah, I mean, even then he's probably going to finish like top three in clutch player of the year as well. Like, I don't know, just not much you can say about SGA's case. I think he's my MVP for me.
Yeah, I had SGA as well. Hard to make an argument against him. I feel like his resume is just so flawless. The
Hmm.
consistency, the body of work over the course of an 82 game season on a team that's once again super dominant and they're going to win well over 60 games. It's so impressive. And I really like the point about what he's been able to do with Jalen Williams mostly being out of the lineup. I think that's a huge testament to Shea. I mean, in general, I feel like this Thunder half court offense isn't as good as a 60-ish win team and a NBA champion, a potential back-to-back champion,
Okay.
and it's really in some ways all Shea. And then, like you said about the playmaking, I feel like this is the best the playmaking has ever been. He doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't turn the ball over. Whether he's doubled, he finds the open man or he finds a way to beat the double. So he just has so many ways to negate really tough coverage, and he's been super impressive this season. I feel like he's been just a notch better than last season, and last season I thought he was a deserving MVP as
Yeah, it's
well.
crazy.
So yeah, it's just been totally absurd. And then the clutch time stuff, like you said, I mean, when you're going against this team, you just feel hopeless, and it's because of Shea. He just does everything. And then I don't think he's a top 10 or 15 defender in the world or whatever, but
No.
he is a clear plus defender, and he's a key part of a very successful defensive team. So all of that together, I feel like it's hard to make a case against him. And really, for all of the season, he's been in my head the MVP, and I never sort of wavered on that, despite understanding all the cases. I feel like he has the cleanest case, and it's really hard to poke any holes in it.
Yeah, I agree with you for sure.
All right. I think we can quickly go ahead and talk about our all NBA teams and then move ahead all defensive, all rookie. We're not going to talk as in depth about them,
Yeah.
but yeah, just go over all NBA, I guess, team by team, and then just some of the toughest calls.
Yeah, yeah, I had some really tough calls, and I guess this also kind of comes down to like who's gonna hit the marks at the end of the season, the 65 games. But all NBA first team, I had Jokic, Wemby, and I guess assuming if Luca is able to appeal or whatever, if he gets it, then I think clearly Luca, SGA. I was decided between Jalen Brown and Kawhi for the last spot on fifth team. Ended up going with a JB. Just for I kind of edged out like the team success and overachieving and just like I don't know, just standing out in a role that like not many people expected him to do. I know a lot of people kind of scoff at like the advanced stuff and the on off stuff with JB, and I think that the way some of those models are constructed, kind of like I don't I feel like that kind of misses the mark with what Jalen Brown has done for the Celtics this year. Second team, I have Jalen Duren, then Kawhi if he is second team, Jamal Murray, Donovan Mitchell, and IKD. And I tried to like roughly still follow the same teams. I know it's like it's positionless, but I still kind of like to follow the two guards and three bigs or three front court players if I can. And then third team, I had Maxey, Jalen Brunson, Jalen Johnson, Chet, and James Harden.
Yeah.
And had some really tough omissions. Like Devin Booker was probably my toughest omission, to be completely honest, because I think he's going to hit 65, and he's been really, really, really good lately. So he almost made me sway, but that's where I landed on my All NBA right now.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great list. Quick aside about Booker, I believe he's going to hit the 65. The 65. This we don't have to open this can of worms.
No, you're good.
It's a silly rule, but I believe
Yeah, it
there's
is.
something about he didn't play 20 minutes in some of these
Oh, you're
games, so he's
right.
not going to qualify,
Yeah,
which is
you're
just
right. Never mind. You're right.
totally weird.
Yeah, that's
I
rough.
would have had him on my team personally if he, but yeah, totally weird rule.
You're right.
They gotta alter it a little bit. I kind of like it in principle, but alter it, please.
Yeah.
All NBA first team, I had Shea, Jokic, Wemby, obviously. I had Jalen Brown as well. I definitely agree. I feel like this is a great example of a player you have to balance out the eye test with the analytics. The analytics might not be great, but the eye test says he's been a top five level player
Yeah.
throughout the season and exceeding expectations, all that. And then I had Donovan Mitchell or Luca. I think if Luca is able to appeal, which for some reason I just don't think he's going to be able to do
Yeah, I
because
don't know.
Adam Silver in the NBA just loves this rule. So I had Mitchell penciled in there, but I think that's one of my tougher calls
Yeah.
between Mitchell, Kawhi, who I had on my second team, Jalen Brunson, who I had on my second team. I was really debating between all three of those guys. Tyrese Maxey
Yeah.
is also on my second team, and then I had Jalen Johnson and Kevin Durant.
Nice.
Yeah, I feel like pretty straightforward there. And then I went with Chet Holmgren, Jamal Murray, Jalen Duren, Danny Avdia, and Scotty Barnes on my third team.
Yeah. That's good.
I almost had Harden as well. He was right, missed the cut. Same with De'Aaron Fox. I think De'Aaron Fox is super underrated. He was my next guy. I don't think a lot of people would have had him in that conversation,
Yeah.
but he was right in line for me. And then, unfortunately, I will say if Kawhi makes it, I would have to cut Scotty Barnes.
Yeah, it's tough.
But I still feel like he's deserving of an All NBA spot, and I think that is one thing with this rule. Like we're not getting any like super goofy players. Like people were like, "Oh, all of a sudden Paolo's going to be All NBA." I was like, guys, make your list. That's just
I
not the
know.
case, to
Seriously.
be honest. But yeah, I guess quick couple shout outs here. Denny, I feel like the season he's having and how much he means to this Portland Trailblazers offense. Gives him the nod there, and he's been totally insane. We didn't talk about him for most improved, but taking that leap from a really nice player who showed a ton of flashes, especially in those last 20, 30 games of last season, that he could be this star, and now I do think he is truly a star, and I mean, the Trailblazers offense around him is pretty rough.
Yeah.
I'll also shout out Jalen Brunson because I feel like his season has gone a little under the radar. It might not be his signature Brunson season, but he's still been great, and some of the surrounding talent hasn't been ideal. Towns is having a down season. Maxi, we talked about earlier. Kawhi's having a great year. Yeah, I feel like this is pretty standard. Yeah, do you want to move ahead to all defensive teams?
Yeah, so all defense, I had Wemby, Derek White, I had Osar, Chet, and Rudy for first team, and second team I had Scotty, then I had Bam, Chris Dunn, Casey Wallace, and Stephon Castle. tough. And I'm sure you might have some of these other guys, but I mean, it's hard to leave off guys like obviously Amin, and then sorry, I meant to say Amin for first team. My bad. OG, another guy I wanted to mention, Jaden McDaniels, who I think probably have a really strong case as well. Dyson Daniels, Evan Mobley, but yeah. Anyways, if celebrating only 10 guys feels wrong, there's a lot of really good defensive players, but yeah, that's kind of where I landed.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I have a list of 7 guys that missed the cut,
Yeah, it's
and
crazy.
I mean, I was deciding right before we got at the podcast who I want my last guy to be. I was thinking about it all week, and I had it down to 9. I was like, I love this 9, and there's really it came down to like 5 guys where it's like, is it going back and forth? But yeah, ultimately I had Wemby, Asar, Gobert, obviously if you remember from before, and then I went with Chet Holmgren and Scotty Barnes on my first team.
Yeah,
Chet, anchor of the league's best defense. Scotty, we talked about, super important part of a defense that is wildly overachieved. Then I had Amen Thompson and Derek White. We talked about White a lot. Amen, similar to his twin, he's just super versatile, elite on-ball guy. I feel like Loki should have won it last year.
right.
And I think he definitely could have been my first team. And then I had OG Anunoby, Bam Adebayo, and Evan Mobley on my second team. OG is just super versatile, guards every position, elite on-ball guy. I feel like that's a theme with me. I really value those elite on-ball guys who also have impressive versatility. Bam, long been one of my favorite defenders, super versatile, along with that elite rim protection. And then Mobley was my last guy, and it's kind of funny because he won DPOY last year, but I was deciding between him, Draymond, Clinton,
Yeah,
Cason Wallace, Steph Castle, Chris Dunn, Jaden McDaniels,
it's
all
tough,
those
man.
guys. It was a coin flip. Ultimately, I landed on Mobley because I wanted to get another rim protector in there. I did have a lot of rim protectors on my first team, but it felt kind of weird having Bam be my only rim protector
On the second team.
on that second team. So
Yeah,
I guess I just kind of valued that a little arbitrary, but he's still been incredible, and they don't have a ton of great on ball defenders around him, so
yeah.
I gave him the nod.
I like that. I don't have any. I don't have any qualms with that. Yeah, it's tough to narrow it down. And yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Draymond. I meant to mention Draymond as well. I think he's actually been like still pretty good. The Warriors have also kind of been rough, especially without Steph. But I don't know, man. Draymond's still really good. So he actually plays Wemby like when he's directly matched up. He actually plays Wemby pretty well. So I don't know. Draymond still got some sauce. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. Draymond, it was really it came down to him or Draymond ultimately for me. And I mean,
yeah,
Draymond is like so obnoxious, and you could say all this about him, and I totally get it, but he
he's
genuinely
really good, man.
revolutionized defense, and he's still elite
Yeah,
despite
he's
his
so
age.
good.
So yeah, I think we can move ahead to our all rookie teams before
Mhm.
wrapping it up.
Cool. Yeah, all rookie first team. Obviously, the top three: Colin Cooper and VJ. And then I went with Dylan Harper and Derek Queen for the next two. I think there's a few guys you could make a case for. I think Harper is probably number four, like pretty definitively. Um, and then that fifth spot, I think you can probably cycle in like a few guys. I ended up just going with Derek Queen there. I don't know. I just really like what he's done for the Pelicans this year. It's weird because Zion's still like only 25 years old, and he actually had like kind of a pretty decent and relatively healthy season for New Orleans. Um, but I could see I wouldn't be surprised if they moved on from Zion and gave Queen some more run. And then second team, I went with Kalkbrenner, CMB, Colin Murray Boyles on the Raptors, Jeremiah Fears, Cedric Coward, and then Ace Bailey. I think it's been really fun to see Ace the last as the Jazz have been more egregious with their tanking. It's been kind of cool to see Ace kind of have a longer leash, and I think he's shown more than enough to make second team at least. I think there's a decent first team case for Ace, but definitely at least second team. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great list. I think we're gonna go 9 for 10.
nice,
But yeah, I had Cooper, Con, VJ, obviously, and then Dylan Harper, who's been so important to that Spurs team, and I've been so impressed with him. Cedric Howard was my last first team guy. I gave him the
nice.
nod over Ace, as well as Maxime Reynaud and Derek Queen, who were all on my second team. But ultimately, I just think that Coward had the most consistent body of work throughout the season, whereas Ace sort of came on late. Queen was not his fault, but he just had a really weird role all season
Yeah,
long with that goofy Pelicans team, and God, I hope they trade Zion.
I know,
I'll
right?
just leave it at that.
Yeah, yeah.
But still, definitely worthy, and he was a guy I loved coming into the draft, so no problem with him on first team. I just think Coward was a little bit more consistent, and then Ace, like you said, he's been awesome. Maxime Renault, bright spot on that Kings team. Queen,
That's a good point.
and
That's a
then
good
I
point. Yeah.
I went with Jeremiah Fears and Colin Murray Boyles as my last two. I think Fears has really been awesome, and he's been able to sustain some of his level of play. With the Jadante Murray coming back, despite being moved to the bench, he's really thrived in that, and he's just so fast. I think ton of potential, and I hope they really dedicate this offseason to building around those two. And then CMB, I feel like I'm happy you had him as well.
Yeah,
He was my last guy. I was deciding between him, the Wizards rookies, and then Kalkbrenner. I feel like you can't go wrong with any of those. But I think he's been so important to a team that has been successful, and he's super versatile. And he's been playing a lot of center for them, especially when Podol's been in and out of the lineup. So yeah, I gave it to him, and also just as a little middle finger to that 65 game rule because
yeah,
it's doesn't matter for rookies
yep,
apparently. Because he's only played like 55 games, but
exactly,
I still think, despite that, he's been one of the more impactful players.
for sure. I love it, man. That's great.
All right, yeah, absolutely. I think we can wrap it up here, but
Cool.
before we officially close out the show, I just want to give you a chance to plug your work, tell our listeners where they can find you at.
Yeah, yeah. So I co-host a podcast called Once Upon a Dribble. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. More of a NBA historical leaning podcast, but we try to contextualize some NBA history within what's kind of happening in the current game. So just last month, I actually had Sam Quinn from CBS Sports on. We talked about kind of who held the championship belt each year in terms of like who's the best player in the world. Every year since 1991. So that was really fun to kind of get his perspective on things. But I've talked about everything from like certain playoff series to certain team seasons, coach bios. Like you can find a ton of different things that we've covered. If not, you can just follow me on Twitter, X, whatever you still want to call it. I still call it Twitter. I'm just Medi Joe 20, Medijo20. I just post random NBA thoughts. I'll do some graphics and stat stuff here and there as well. So, but yeah, that's where you can find me.
All right, yeah, appreciate you hopping on the show, Josh, and I'll throw those links in the description. And
Cool.
yeah, make sure to check out his work, guys, if you're listening out there. But yeah, wrap it up here. Peace out.